Welcome to Pebble Hill. Pebble Hill was established in the 1820s by Thomas Jefferson Johnson. Mr. Johnson's family lived here on the property for basically 3 generations. He established the plantation in the 1820s. After his passing, then his daughter inherited Pebble Hill. After she passed away, then her daughter inherited Pebble Hill. It was a typical agrarian plantation during that time period. Now then, we jump a little bit ahead to almost the turn of the century. In 1896, Howard Melville Hanna from Cleveland, Ohio, purchased the property and the house that stood here. It was a house that was built in 1857. The architect was John Wind. Mr. Hanna, in 1901, gave the property then to his daughter, Kate Hannah Ireland Harvey. This is a portrait of Mrs. Harvey. She was married twice, first to Mr. Ireland, who was the father of her 2 children, Robert Livingston Ireland and Elizabeth Ireland Poe, fondly named Pansy as her nickname. She later married Mr. Harvey. In 1901, when her father gave her the property, she restored the house. In 1934, there was a fire that destroyed that house. So what we see today, here down this long hallway, is a house that was constructed in 1934 and completed in 18 months, finished in 1936. It's a house that has 16 bedrooms, 19 bathrooms, 24 fireplaces. It was built with the intention of hosting family and friends. They came down here for the winter months only. They came down about October and then went back north in April for the spring. After this house was completed, it wasn't long after that Mrs. Harvey passed away. She then left her holdings to her 2 children, and it was decided that Mrs. Poe, her daughter, would inherit Pebble Hill. This is Mrs. Poe. She's featured here with her horse Chintz and her dog Gloria. It was Mrs. Poe who left the endowment for Pebble Hill to be operated as a museum when she would pass away. All the furnishings you'll see in the house are original to their collected pieces, things they lived with. We offer a tour that describes their lifestyle, the time period that they lived in, and we hope you'll enjoy the tour. We are in the formal dining room of the main house. This is where the family would entertain family and friends. The table here is set for 14, although it will accommodate 24 guests. They entertained people like President Eisenhower. He came down in the 1950s to Thomasville almost every February while he was in the office of president. This room is special, not only because they entertained many guests here, but there's so many beautiful things in here to see. If you look at the walls here, you'll see that these look like marble, although they are a painted finish. It's called a faux finish. It took the artist who did this work about a year to complete the entire room. She lived here at Pebble Hill while she worked on the room. Supposedly she signed it somewhere, but we have yet to find her signature. There are 3 paintings on the wall that we like to point out in this room. The painting across the hall here, or across the room here, is of Mr. Hanna and his older brother, Mark Hanna. It was those 2 young men that built the M.A. Hanna Company, which afforded this kind of lifestyle. It was a business that was in the mining industry. They also built ships that sailed the Great Lakes, and so that is what they did to afford this. The portrait over the mantel here is an ancestor of Perry Williams Harvey, Mrs. Harvey's 2nd husband. He is credited with learning how the blood circulates through the human body. Anytime we have guests here that have a medical background, they are very familiar with Dr. Harvey. On this wall here is Mr. Hanna as an older man. You can make the comparison of him as a little boy in a pink dress holding a hat to the more mature man here in this formal portrait. This was Mr. Hanna who bought the property in 1896. His daughter is Kate Hannah Ireland Harvey. His granddaughter is Mrs. Elizabeth Ireland Poe. This is the main drawing room, also called the big room. The family was very casual in this house. Again, it was their country estate. The big room underwent a couple of transformations. When it originally was built in 1914 as an addition to the 1850s house, Mrs. Harvey had the room decorated very traditionally. She had oil paintings hanging down from the walls. She had tasseled lampshades on the lamps. She had beautiful fresh cut flowers all the time. But basically all of the furniture that you still see here was part of that original design. Now then we leap to the 1940s, and Mrs. Poe wanted to put her own personality into the room. She loved everything about Pebble Hill and the outdoors here at Pebble Hill. She commissioned an artist by the name of J. Clinton Shepard. Mr. Shepard was an artist from Tampa, Florida, and he came up here and they discussed what she wanted and struck up a correspondence. He would send her sketches based on what she had mentioned. She would send back suggestions, and the ultimate outcome was this beautiful mural. If you look around the room, you see that this mural is actually one piece of art. It's only divided by the moldings that are part of the wall. Mr. Shepard cut his canvas to meet the measurements of those moldings and painted the work in his studio. Then they applied the canvas like wallpaper. What you have here is a three-dimensional view of the flora and fauna of South Georgia based on Mrs. Poe and Mr. Shepard's view of that. And anyway, it also houses a lot of the trophies here that were won with the animals at Pebble Hill, cows, horses, and dogs. We're now on the second floor of the main house. Originally, this portion of the house was very much like the downstairs. It was bedrooms, sitting rooms, closets, and so on. It now houses the permanent collection of Mrs. Poe. She was an avid art collector, and the theme, of course, that runs throughout the house is sporting art, because that is what they loved to do here, was to go hunting and enjoy the land here. So you'll see some beautiful pieces of art by some of the world's most well-known sporting artists. If you look around, though, here at the staircase, you'll see some of the beautiful architectural elements in the house. The house was designed by Abram Garfield, the youngest son of President James Garfield. And the staircase is what is called a freestanding staircase, and you'll see some details of that if you were to be able to come here. You will see a beautiful dome on the ceiling here, a Palladian window. The light fixture dates back to the Revolutionary War era. It is Chippendale in style. Originally, it would have had candles that lit the room. Of course, now it is electric.